Jeb James Boasberg has failed to disclose payments received from non-federal sources. And abused his discretion during his term on the FISA court.
These judges, are exceeding their powers beyond belief.
The president has been sworn in since January 20th. How many injunctions do you think the court's already installed? 15. Do you think there's some bias going on? Absolutely.
Judge Boasberg facing heat in Congress. You remember who this judge is. He's been the person we've talked a lot about here. Boasberg on the D.C. District Court, same judge who gave Ray Epps probation and said that Ray Epps was being hounded by people, I guess, like us, and was very upset about his poor treatment. The same judge who is ordering Trump to stop deporting Tren de Aragua terrorists. The same judge who is now handling the Signalgate case. Judge Boasberg. His wife is pro-abortion person who runs a clinic down there. Daughter has some questionable connections too. But this judge now is facing some scrutiny. Representative Andy Biggs says, I've introduced a resolution to remove Judge Boasberg without needing 2/3 of the Senate, which is what you would need for an impeachment. Congress can't stand by while activist judges incorrectly believe they have more authority than the duly elected president, and Congress needs to do something about this. So Andy Biggs has now submitted a resolution, and here's what it looks like. This is going directly after Chief Judge of the District of Columbia, James Boasberg, aka Jeb, coming from Arizona. Shout out, doing some great work here. Andy Biggs, running for governor very soon, says, all right, be it resolved that James Boasberg, Chief Judge of the United States of D.C., is removed for failing to maintain the standard of good behavior required of judges under Section 1 of Article 3 of the Constitution. And this is different than impeachment, which would require 2/3 of the Senate, just because this is a resolution, so simple majority vote in both houses would be sufficient to afuera this judge. Saying, article of removal exhibited by the House is about Boasberg. Saying, here's why. Article 1, abuse of power. Chief Judge Boasberg, in violation of his oath of office, did knowingly and willfully use his judicial position to knowingly interfere with President Trump's constitutional prerogatives and enforcement of the rule of law, and he did it for political gain. Now, the Constitution, writes Biggs, grants Congress the authority to create, eliminate, regulate all federal courts that are inferior to the Supreme Court. Section 1 of Article 3 of the Constitution says that judges, both of the Supreme and inferior courts, shall hold their offices during good behavior. And that specific sentence, says Biggs, grants Congress the authority to remove a judge who fails to remain in good behavior while in office, a different standard than impeachment. The Constitution grants the president broad and expansive powers over foreign policy and to ensure national security, and the Supreme Court has even ruled that the power to conduct foreign affairs is a political power. It's a political power, which is largely beyond the scope of judicial inquiry or decision. But you have to do this and this and this because the statutes say these are judgment calls. They're political calls. The courts can't substitute their judgment for that, or otherwise they're acting as the president. Now, as such, outside questions of constitutionality, is the law constitutional or not? Not what Trump did. The Constitution places foreign policy decisions by the president and Congress beyond the scope of review. You can't review that. The people review that at the ballot box. In 1798, they write, Biggs, Congress passed the Alien Enemies Act, 1798, been on the books for a long time, which authorizes the president to make a public proclamation that designates members of a foreign nation or government liable for apprehension and removal as alien enemies of the United States. The act gives the president sole authority to determine the manner of the enemy aliens and removal and establish any regulations that are necessary to ensure public safety. And that's what Trump did. On March 15th, President Trump issued a proclamation declaring that all Venezuelan citizens who are members of the organization known as Tren de Aragua are liable to be apprehended and removed under the Alien Enemies Act due to the threat that the organization poses to the United States and its clear entanglement with the government of Venezuela. And furthermore, due to the severity of these gangs' crimes against the United States, Trump declared that they are ineligible for the benefits of the act and are liable to immediate apprehension and removal. Pursuant to this declaration, Kristi Noem, Pam Bondi took actions and started removing these people with haste. Now, despite the broad authority given by the Constitution to the president when conducting matters of foreign affairs and national security, and the clear authority given to the president under the Constitutional Act, so we've got Article 2 of the Constitution, plus Congress and the Alien Enemies Act, we have two branches of government that are being overridden now by James E. Boasberg. He knowingly interfered with Trump's execution of foreign policy by ordering the return of members of a designated foreign terrorist organization to the United States. To justify his action, Boasberg cited questions questions about the interpretation of certain words and phrases, this stump judge, which are intimately tied to the president's foreign policy powers and beyond the scope of his court. And in doing so, Boasberg knowingly extended beyond the bounds of power of his office and unjustly interfered with the foreign policy and national security of the presidency. And furthermore, in addition, Jeb James Boasberg has failed to disclose payments received from non-federal sources. And abused his discretion during his term on the FISA court. Where's that money coming from? What kind of money you talking about there, Biggs? Accordingly, under the good behavior clause of Section 1, Article 3, these actions of James Boasberg constitute misbehavior, render him liable from removal from office. Saying, wherefore, James Boasberg, by his conduct, has failed to remain in good behavior, should be removed from office, and no longer be considered judge of the United States. Signed or sent in to Congress by Andy Biggs from Arizona, saying, failed to disclose payments received from non-federal sources. That feels very scandalous. We'll have to see exactly what payments Andy Biggs is talking about, but he posted this on his X. Andy said, Congress must put a stop to rogue judges attempting to legislate for the entire nation. Says we cannot stand by while activist judges who incorrectly believe they got more authority than the president. And so I have co-sponsored resolutions to impeach Judge Boasberg. His removal from office via impeachment, however, will undoubtedly be blocked by Democrats in the Senate, since it requires a 2/3 majority. My resolution, on the other hand, asserts pursuant to Article 3, Section 1, that rogue judges may be removed the same way we confirm them, with a simple majority. Judge Boasberg abused his judicial authority for political gain and is not in compliance with the constitutional good behavior clause. He must not be permitted to remain in his position. Congress has a duty to fulfill the promises we've made to the American people, including defending the president's authority to enforce our laws. From Andy Biggs, and a mega hat tip and shout out to Law of Self-Defense, saying, I've been screaming about this message for weeks, and I concur that we should do this. So interesting developments there. We'll see what Congress does with it. Meanwhile, Chuck Grassley has been talking about this in the House as well. Here was a report from Fox News explaining.
Activist judges who oppose President Trump or exceed their jurisdiction. This week, both the House and the Senate are looking at ways to mitigate that trend. We've seen a lot of it. Senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram shows us how tonight.
Republicans raging.
These judges, are exceeding their powers beyond belief.
The GOP accusing judges of stretching their jurisdiction, issuing nationwide injunctions.
Yes, they have their constitutional powers, but not superior to the President of the United States nor the Congress.
House and Senate Republicans writing bills to limit the reach of these rulings.
Universal injunctions have become a favorite tool of those seeking to obstruct President Trump's agenda.
Hopefully it's going to send a message to these rogue judges.
Democrats call this bullying.
Part of this effort is to put in the judge's mind, whatever judge it is, if you don't go our way, we're going to get you one way.
You mean like when they were protesting outside Kavanaugh's house, or when Chuck Schumer was outside the Supreme Court? There'll be a whirlwind coming for you, Kavanaugh. Remember that lunatic? We do. Well, here's more. Markwayne Mullin, he's in the Senate. He's saying, look, enough of this, okay? Last time I checked, the Constitution doesn't give district court judges the power to legislate from the bench. Here's Markwayne.
Hey guys, I want to talk to you real quick about the injunctions going on with the courts. You would think that there would be some agreement between the courts and the president on what he's doing, especially when it comes to illegal aliens and the crimes they're committing. I think the American people spoke very loud that they wanted law and order back on our streets. And so when the president tries to deport a plane full of illegal aliens that are gang members to El Salvador, you would think the judge would support that, right? You would think that considering he's a judge, he puts bad guys away, that we'd want to get these illegals that are bad guys out of our country. But no, the hatred towards President Trump even has the courts not being truthful with the American people. They simply hate everything that the president is doing. Let me talk to you about real numbers. So my liberal friends that are watching this, argue with this. Underneath the Obama administration, 8 years, the court only put in 12 injunctions. Underneath President Trump, his first term, in 4 years, they put up 64 injunctions. Biden, who was completely absent-minded, wasn't even running the country, which could arguably be the largest cover-up we've ever had in political history. The judges on these DC courts and the district courts around the country only put up 14 injunctions in 4 years. Now, President has been sworn in since January 20th. How many injunctions do you think the court's already installed? 15. Do you think there's some bias going on? Absolutely. That's why Speaker Johnson in the House and Leader Thune in the Senate is leading the charge to start holding these courts accountable. They are simply there to interpret the law and the Constitution, not weigh in banned from the bench because of their political bias towards President Trump. It has gone too far, and it's time for these courts and these judges to be held accountable.
Amazing. We're glad that you're in the Senate and that you can put some pressure on John Thune and others to take some action. That would be good. But even Americans agree. Harry Enton from CNN says, I wouldn't even believe these numbers unless I saw them. A large minority are against the idea of judges even being able to review Trump's policies. Let's listen to him explain.
Sometimes they're just some poll numbers that just jump up off the screen at me. Let's take a look here. All right, allow judges to review Trump's policies. Look at this. Overall, 77% say yes, compared to 23% that say no. Among Republicans, it is a majority, Laura, but it's just 56%. Look at this. 44% say no, judges do not have the right to review Trump's policies. That is an outstanding number to me. I never thought I would see it, Laura Coates.
All right, so maybe if you asked a better question, you would believe it. But okay, so Harry Enton's trying to understand what's happening out there. Good attempt. But what's happening is Boasberg, and the American people are getting sick of these judges. They're not elected. They're installed by Democrats. Most of them have been Obama, Clinton, or Biden judges who've all issued nationwide injunctions from blue states that impact the entire country. We've now got 27 states saying, we don't want gangbangers in our state. And so let's get them out of here. We're excited to see where this goes. Hopefully other representatives join in on this. And if these judges want to fight and say, no, you can't remove us based on simple majority, well, they can sue. They can go file a declaratory lawsuit, and Judge Boasberg can sue. He can go bring it to Judge Chutkan, and then Judge Chutkan can say, I'm sorry you're being victimized by Trump. And then Chutkan can issue a TRO on Andy Biggs, and then Andy Biggs can impeach her too. And we're going to cover it all. Thanks for subscribing and joining as we do.